My Hero Academia Chapter 375 should be available in the next couple of days, or at least the spoilers for it, which we will be going over on this channel, of course, when they're available. But right now, I want to do my predictions, or at least my expectations, for what I think we're going to see in My Hero Academia Chapter 375. The Toga and Ochako area. I think we're going to be cutting back over to Ochako's area to see how the fight continued from the last time that we saw Toga, Ochako, and Tsuyu. Deku left them behind to make his way back to UA, and a lot has happened in the time that it took him to get there. So once we cut back to the Toga area, I think we definitely might stay there for 2 or 3 more chapters to catch us up from the minute that Deku left to the moment that Toga uses Sad Man's Parade. There's also the question of whether or not the Twice clone at the end of Chapter 374 was holding one of Froppy's goggles, meaning we'll also be on the lookout to see if Froppy is in any significant danger, especially given the fact that students have either been maimed or undergone some sort of radical growth in each area that we focused on so far. So which will it be here? Is there any hope for Ochako to give Toga her real answer that she's finally come to after all this time? Or once Sad Man's Parade is up, is Toga gonna just be lost in the swarm of Twice clones, becoming practically unsavable? A fiery reunion. We just mentioned it, but the end of Chapter 374 features multiple Twice clones arriving at All For One's battlefield, and alongside them was Dabi, who was finally teleported away from Shoto's area after more or less winning the fight there. Burnin and Shoto last chapter were confused at just how it was possible that Dabi was still standing, with Burning saying this goes far beyond willpower anymore, something is definitely off with Dabi. And now with him reuniting with Endeavor, I expect to see Dabi burn even more, as he not only burns himself, but Endeavor also has to burn him in order to effectively fight him at all. And it all just reminds me that even the doctor who healed All For One back up from his injuries against Prime All Might was confused at how Dabi survived his incident on top of the burning mountain as a child, and then after leaving the facility where they were going to be healing him. There's definitely something up with Dabi's quirk, and I think he has to get more and more burned for that to show itself, but I do think that in this chapter we'll at least be spending some time on the Dabi and Endeavor area, because this week in the anime is also Dabi's dance, where Dabi reveals his identity, and I know mangaka love to line things up like that, especially ones like Horikoshi or Isayama, who are known for these fun ties between the current episode and chapter. Will Dabi finally put an end to Endeavor, or is it possible for Endeavor to finally do what he must and put a stop to the fire that he himself started? Global implications. We've started to see that the events of My Hero Academia's conflicts in Japan have started to spill out to other countries. The story has shown us that All For One's grasp extends far and wide, but despite the fact that nations are ready to bend to his will, ordinary people are still showing some resistance, like for example, the Weather Girl from Chapter 374, who made an effort to speak out against the villain. I think eventually these small acts of civilians speaking out could very much do the same thing that Deku accidentally did by acting in the first chapter of My Hero Academia, by pointing out the flawed inaction of the heroes, causing them to move to Japan's defense even against the wishes of their own world leaders. Star and Stripe came to Japan because she believed that heroes help people, and she felt she owed a debt to All Might to save him and his country. But now we've seen that the massive storm being generated by the different battles in this arc rages on and threatens to make its way overseas to the US. Could someone try to make their way to Japan in an attempt to at least help out, given that we still have the potential for Gigantomachia's release, as well as an army of Twice clones to deal with on top of everything else now? I think the situation is very dire for the heroes, and any and all help would be welcome, but for now, I just think we'll continue to see sprinkles here and there of the global impact that this final battle battle is having for everyone else. All for One's exit. With Dabi and Twice now in Endeavor and Hawks' area, counters for the two most powerful quirk users there are finally present. And by that I mean counters for Tokoyami and Endeavor, given the fact that Hawks is completely without feathers at this point. I think knowing that his time is extremely limited, and given some of his statements earlier about wanting to reach Tamura, All for One will take advantage of Kurogiri's warp gates in order to switch battlefields and move himself over to the Deku vs Shigaraki area. This is extremely dangerous, as Deku needs to end the fight rather quickly still, and his time is likely almost up, on top of the fact that we still have no idea what's going on with Shigaraki's body. Will Shigaraki go full Muzan and provide us with a final form of sorts for the final battle? And what could All for One's role be if he does meet Deku face to face? We've just seen the quirk All for One and Deku interact for the first time in the anime. Later on during the Deku Black arc, with All for One telling Deku that he was only thinking about him during his time in prison, we know that All for One has some sort of plan involving Deku, because that's just what he does. But what could it be, and how will it benefit himself and Shigaraki? I truly expect to see some sort of fight between Deku and All for One, and given the fact that All for One has Aries quirk activated on him constantly right now, he really could go full power against Deku, basically using infinite 100% All for One against Deku. So how will things develop here? Erasure no more. With Kurogiri arriving on the Shigaraki vs Deku battlefield and taking Aizawa's attention, I definitely think we're coming to the end of the Shigaraki erasure section of this battle. Aizawa and Monoma have done a great job at keeping Shigaraki nerfed this entire time, but nothing less than a full power battle between the main character and main villain will do for this final climax. We've seen Deku and Shigaraki powering up throughout the series, and now is finally the time to let them loose. A Shigaraki with all of his quirks available would pose an actual danger to Deku instead of just being his punching bag. And regardless of what happens, we'd likely need a change of scenery, since I can't see Deku keeping the fight at UA due to Shigaraki's decay, meaning Ichigo style, he'd probably take him elsewhere to finish the battle. Personally, if I had to pick somewhere, I'd pick the beach that Deku cleaned up in the beginning of the series for the final location of their battle, or maybe something more meaningful to the both of them in some sort of symbolic way, like the place where Deku saved Bakugo from the slime monster. But ultimately, I do think that the erasure coming from Monoma and Aizawa is about to meet its end, and the fight will evolve into a whole new stage because of it, maybe even one that our main character Deku might not be able to survive. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, guys. That's the full video. Those are my predictions for My Hero Academia Chapter 375. If you're looking for something else to watch, go check out my Hero Academia is an ending video, or My Hero Academia time skip designs, where we react to some really great art showing what characters in My Hero Academia would look like 5 years later. If that's not your jam, you can check out my new Fortnite Chapter 4 Deku trailer video, where I react to the new trailer for Deku in Fortnite. And feel free to scroll the channel for anything else you'd want to watch, even if it's not My Hero Academia. We do discuss a number of series on the channel. Just make sure to look for a playlist. Pineapple out. I'll see you guys later. Love ya. Peace.